The train was on time, but where that might have been the first line of a joke in England, it was completely normal in Germany. Even thinking it, Albert knew he was being a little unfair. Rail services in the UK had improved vastly since privatisation in the 90s. Regardless, the train was approaching the platform just as the clock ticked around to 12:03 hours. "Ready, Rex?" he asked. His human was acting oddly, displaying an unusual and yet unexplained sense of anticipation Rex could not fathom. They rode trains every few days to get from one place to the next. What was special about this one? Albert had his backpack on. It forced him to sit forward in his chair, which was a little uncomfortable, but they were about to get off, so it didn't really matter. His small blue suitcase was in his left hand, and he had Rex's lead gripped firmly in his right. Looking out through the window, he strained his eyes to find familiar faces. Wing Commander, retired, Roy Hope and his wife Beverly were meeting him at the station, and had already texted to say they were on the platform waiting. His friends were also his neighbours, a couple who had lived across the street for decades. They were of a similar age, and when his wife was alive, they went out as a foursome. After losing Petunia more than a year ago, things changed as they inevitably had to, but he still saw the folks from across the street on a regular basis. They were in Europe for a nostalgic tour around some of the places they became familiar with during Roy's time in the Royal Air Force. He spent more than 20 years at different bases in Germany, one of which was the nearby RAF Hoffenheim, sitting just across the border from the Netherlands. It was closed in the late 90s, but according to some of Roy's old comrades, apart from the gates closing, from the outside at least, it looked as though very little had changed. Albert had, of course, never seen the place, but one location was as good as any other, and he had discovered a love for exploring that started a few months ago, on the anniversary of his wife's passing. That trip took him around the British Isles, but, in an unexpected quirk of fate, his adventures made his face one that people across the UK would recognise, so it was as much to escape the constant selfies and questions that he chose the European mainland for his second expedition. Spotting Beverly and then Roy, Albert tried waving to get their attention. Of slight build, Roy sported an impressive handlebar moustache. It was pure white to match his full head of hair. It made Albert a little jealous, since he could count the hairs on his head without needing to employ both hands. Thin red lines encircled Roy's face like the map of the London Underground, and he wore a smart navy blue blazer beneath a thick winter coat. In his right hand he carried a thin walking cane. 2 years his junior, Beverly was a little thicker at the hips than she had been in her youth, but her bust had grown too, as if noting the need to keep her figure in balance. Wearing her hair shoulder-length, it was dyed with multiple tones to make it a lustrous light brown that somehow looked natural despite her advancing years.